Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video I am sharing with you guys the makeup brands that I have my eye on to try for the first time in the year of 2020. I've seen quite a few people do these videos, mostly in January, kind of at the beginning of the year. I didn't want to upload this video in January though, because if you have been watching me for a while, you'll know that January for me was a full month of nothing new, and I really didn't even want to talk about new makeup during the month of January. But at the end of 2019, I did sit down and write a list of makeup brands that I kind of have had my eye on for a while that I have never tried anything out from before. So I wanted to share that list with you guys today. Before we get into the video, special welcome to any of you that are new to my channel. I hope that you will subscribe if you have not done that yet. And with that said, let's jump right in. So the first brand that I wrote down is actually one that, as I've looked over this list, which again I wrote over a month ago, it's probably one that I might either put at the bottom of my list or even take off the list altogether. I don't know, but let me go ahead and mention it for you guys. It is the brand Nabla. Now I've kind of been curious about this brand on and off over the last couple of years. I have had some of you mention that you really enjoyed their eyeshadow palette specifically, so I kind of looked at some of their palettes and they do look really pretty. I'm just not sure they're totally for me. Now, one palette that I originally was really interested in is the Dream 2 palette, but as I was looking at that palette recently, it reminded me quite a bit of the Jackie Aina palette, so I don't really feel like that's a palette that would add a whole lot to my collection, other than just the fact that I'm curious to try out their formula. Nabla does, however, also have a highlighter that I'm kind of interested in. It's their skin glazing highlighters, but these are a little bit more on the pricey side. I have so many great highlighters that I really love. A part of me just feels like I don't really need to add a highlighter to my collection right now. So again, this is one that I kind of am curious about. We'll see if they release anything that really catches my attention, but for now, kind of putting this one down lower on my priority list of brands that have my attention. But the second one I have written down is probably one of the ones that's the closest to the top, and it is the brand Sydney Grace. I have heard a lot of really good things about the Sydney Grace eyeshadow formula. I've also heard a couple of you recommend their eyeshadows as well. They do have a newer eyeshadow palette that came out, I think, a couple of months ago. It's called the Enduring Love palette. This one looks beautiful. It has a lot of soft neutral to cool tones in there that I think looks so pretty. I'm very curious to possibly try that palette out. I'm also maybe considering just picking up a couple of their individual shades or even one of their bundles that they offer. The Enduring Love palette retails for I think $52, which is a little bit above where I'm comfortable spending. I usually like my palettes to be in the $40 range if I can help it, but because I've heard such great things, I'm possibly considering that palette. I also thought about maybe just picking up a couple of her individual shades and creating my own little quad or something from her. So if you guys have tried Sydney Grace out, if you have individual shade recommendations, I would love for you to leave those down below, because this is definitely a brand that I really feel like I need to try. The next brand I have written down is actually one that I've had on kind of a wish list in the back of my mind for a couple of years now, and it's the brand Gway Cosmetics. I have never tried anything out from Gway. I know so many people really love their bronzer duos or their blush duos, which I kind of have my eye on. I've also heard some really great things about their concealer. Let me know if you guys have tried either of these things out, if they are absolute necessities for you. I would especially love to know your thoughts on their concealer, as I'm a very picky concealer person. I like something that's pretty high coverage, but it's also very lightweight, that's not drying at all. I really need hydration on my under eyes, so I would love to know if you have more mature skin or dry skin, if their concealer worked out for you. They are definitely a brand that I'm very curious to try. If you guys have specific recommendations from them, please leave them down in the comments below, because they're definitely one that we'll see. 2020 might be the year for. Next brand is another one that I've had my eye on for a while, and it is the brand Dominique Cosmetics. I know she just came out with a new eyeshadow palette, her Latte 2 palette. That palette looks very beautiful. That seafoam green kind of calls my name, even though I have to remind myself that's probably not a color I would get a whole lot of use out of, which is ironic because I am wearing a shimmery seafoam green on my eyes today. It's from the Saharan 2 palette by Juvia's Place. But I think if I really look at her eyeshadow lineup, the one that probably has my attention the most is either first probably the Latte palette, followed closely by the Berries and Cream palette. I just feel like the arrangement in those two palettes of mattes and shimmers and lighter and darker tones would suit me a little bit better. But then a part of me feels like, do I really want to buy a palette that's a little bit older? I don't know. Let me know if you guys have tried her formula. I've heard so many good things about it, because I'd love to know if it's worth me trying out an older palette, if her formula is exceptional compared to just some other ones that I really love. The next two that we're getting into are ones that I'm especially excited about, because these are affordable eyeshadow brands, and they are two dupe brands out there. The first one being Alter Ego. I have yet to try anything from Alter Ego. I know that they do a lot of dupe palettes. Personally, I would like to pick up the Sahara palette because it is supposed to be a Biba dupe. I know they make a dupe for the Sunrise palette, but I feel like the only reason I would pick that up is if I was doing a dupe video. But there have been so many of those videos done, but I don't own the Biba palette, and I really would love to own the Biba palette, so I think that would probably be the first one that I would pick up. I'm also very hopeful that they are going to dupe the Metropolis palette. I was actually looking back at kind of when their dupe palettes released compared to when the original palettes released, and there seemed to be about a consistent 6-month gap between the two. So I'm very hopeful that in the next few months a dupe for the Metropolis palette will come out. If that's the case, that may be the one that I end up picking up, even though I am still very interested in that Biba dupe. Their palettes are $16, which compared to the Natasha Denona ones is a fantastic deal. So many of you guys have highly recommended their palette, so I'm really excited to give them a try. The next dupe brand that I have my eye on for the coming year is C Color Cosmetics. If you guys watch Jen Phelps or Sabrina, both of them have talked very highly about the C Color Cosmetics dupes. They've said they love their formula, sometimes even more than the palettes that they're duping. C Color Cosmetics actually has a lot more variety when it comes to the dupe palettes that they offer. Looking on their website, it looks like they dupe the Huda Beauty Obsessions palettes, which you guys know I absolutely love. They also have a lot of Natasha Denona dupes. They have some ABH dupes, even some Jeffree Star dupes and Urban Decay dupes on there. And their palettes are even more affordable than the ones from Alter Ego. So the ones that I'm the most interested in for right now are the Savannah palette, which is supposed to be a dupe for the Safari palette by Natasha Denona, and also the Golden palette, which is meant to be a dupe for the Natasha Denona Gold palette. Those two palettes are $8 a piece, which blows my mind. I don't know how you can make that large of a palette for $8. That's such a great deal. That's definitely a brand that I'll probably be picking up sooner than later. If you guys have specific palette recommendations from C Color Cosmetics or even from Alter Ego, please let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to know what you guys think about them. Did they work out for you? They are definitely one I'm most excited about because you guys know I love my eyeshadow and I love affordability. The last two brands are also because of their eyeshadow palettes, and these ones are not quite as affordable. The first one being Makeup Geek. Now, believe it or not, I have never actually tried out Makeup Geek, even from back in the day when she was really big on YouTube and everybody was using Peach Smoothie and Cocoa Bear and Chickadee. I remember the names of her shadows still. In fact, I had a cart full of her shadows for probably years, and I just never ended up hitting the buy button, because here's what happened to me, and this is probably the reason that I almost find it easier to buy eyeshadow palettes, because when I'm buying individual shadows, what happens is I'll go to the website, I'm like, ooh, that's pretty, add to cart. Ooh, that's pretty, add to cart. And before you know it, I have 30 shades in my cart, and 30 shades at $5 a piece, that's $150. That's a very expensive eyeshadow palette. So I never ended up trying them out, but I'm very curious to try them now that they've rebranded and relaunched. I think her large matte cooler tone palette looks stunning, but that's outside of my price range. Realistically, if I was to try out Makeup Geek, I probably would go for a couple of her quads. In fact, I have heard a couple of people say that the value is actually better if you get the quads. I haven't really looked through all of her quad options yet. I honestly don't even know if they're sold out after the relaunch, but I'm very interested in trying it out. Again, I'm not gonna be able to compare it to her original formula because I never tried that. So it really wouldn't be for YouTube purposes that I would buy one of her smaller palettes. It would just be for me to see what the fuss is all about, if it's worth the money. Her smaller palettes are more affordable. They're still $14.99 for 4 shades, which if I'm thinking about it as far as like shades that you're getting, it's not super affordable, but it's also not over the top expensive. It's definitely something I feel like I could afford to do just to try them out. Let me know if any of you guys have tried out some of her rebranded eyeshadows. I would love to know your thoughts on them, or if you have any recommendations, of course, leave them down below. They're definitely one that I'm very interested in though. The very last brand that I have on my list is Vizia Art. Now, for a long time, I haven't been that interested in Vizia Art because even though most of the reviews I hear are that Vizia Art shadows are next to none and cannot be beat, I have heard quite a few people say that for the price, they're not all that. And anytime I hear someone say that a really high-end, expensive brand makeup is not as good as everyone says it is, I'm like, I'll believe that. Thank you for saving me the money. But there's a part of me as an eyeshadow lover that's very curious about the Vizia Art formula. In fact, in my year-end ranking video where I ranked all my eyeshadow palettes, that video did really well and got a lot of views outside of just my subscriber base. So I had a lot of interesting feedback in the comment section in that video. And there was one person that said something along the lines of, thumbs down this video, there's no Vizia Art in this ranking. Not that it hurt my feelings or anything, but it kind of made me think, maybe I'm missing out. So the reason I'm putting Vizia Art back on my list, and this is not a high priority, it's a maybe, but it's because of their newer release, the Paris Edit palette. This is a $39 palette, and I think this looks like a beautiful arrangement of shades. I love how this palette is looking. I love the swatches that I've seen so far. And one reason I'm even more curious about this one now is I heard a couple people say they thought the ColourPop You Are a Cutie palette, which is pretty much brand new. I did pick this up just actually last week. And I've tried this thing out and I like it, but this surprisingly on my eyes did not seem as soft and cool toned as I was expecting that it would be. So now that I'm looking at the Vizia Art one, I'm curious if they really are dupes for each other. Like if that palette is going to be a little bit more subdued and soft and cool tone looking. I did just talk a little bit about this palette and do a look with this in my most recent video, which I will link right here. But one of the things that I said in there was that the way these shadows performed on my eyes reminded me a lot of the way the It's My Pleasure palette performed on my eyes. Not that they're necessarily dupes for each other, but just kind of the feel, the overall feel and look of the shadows. And I kind of was hoping they'd be a little bit more soft, a little bit more cool toned. So I'm even more curious now to try out the Vizia Art one, because even though the look of the shades inside the palette looks similar, maybe they would perform very differently and the Vizia Art one would actually be the cool tone that I'm kind of craving. Now I could totally be wrong and go out and purchase that palette and find that it's exactly like this one and wonder why I spent $39 on a palette that was only $15 to $18 in the first place. Before I decide, I should probably go out and try and find some review videos or swatch videos on it and see if maybe anyone's even formally done kind of a dupes video on these two palettes yet. But it does have my attention. I am curious to see if Vizia Art formula is as good as everyone says it is. I don't know, you guys. I'm kind of feeling more and more as I try more brands out and higher end brands. I just sometimes feel like, is it really worth the high price tag? Most of the time, for me personally, I have to say no. I know people will disagree with that. That's absolutely okay. I'm kind of feeling like, you know, you don't really need to spend a lot of money on eyeshadows. There's some awesome formulas out there that are super affordable. Alright you guys, and that is really it. I did have a couple of complexion products on my list, but I actually already purchased them both. They were both affordable, both drugstore. I will have them featured in an upcoming video. But for today, that's all I have for you guys. Again, please let me know your thoughts on any of these products or brands in the comments down below. I would love your input and your feedback. Thank you guys so much for stopping by my channel today. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know down below what brands are you guys interested in trying out for the first time in the year 2020. But thank you guys again for joining me today. If you are not yet subscribed, be sure to do that before you leave, and I will see all of you very soon in my next video.